In a distant future, a young man named Friendon Ibrahim Blythe lives in Common Ground, an underground vessel where selected people are robbed of their freedom to be kept performing mindless, meaningless, routine tasks and sticking to strict rules. Every 6 months, if the subjects manage to keep a clean slate by trouble, they get to go up to the ground, get out of the vessel, and enjoy 15 minutes of sunshine, monitored by a timer device embedded in their forearm on their way out. One morning, Friendon spends time cherishing the picture of his mother, whom he has only heard of, as he was taken to the common ground at birth and wishing to find her one day. After finishing his morning task, he sneaks out of the activity room, finds an older friend named Mary, and asks her for advice on how to find his mother. Mary calms the panicked young man and assures him that as long as he keeps his mind and preserves his ability to think and reason, no one can take away his freedom. Then, she suggests Friendon should make his next break count. She gives him a picture of an old, wise man named Augustus and advises the young man to look for him on the outside and convince him to help locate his mother. That afternoon, Friendon prepares to go up to ground for his break and gets his pass authorized by the guard, who then proceeds to implant a timer in his forearm and warn him to be back on time. Friendon climbs up to the ground and takes a moment to enjoy the sun. Then he locates a barbed wire fence separating the common ground from the free agent's village and rushes towards it. He endures immense pain from the cuts and bleeds he gets as he cuts through the cumbersome wires and makes sure to only focus on what lies ahead. After a few minutes of hard work, Friendon successfully gets past the wires and makes it to the coveted other side. He then takes a moment to appreciate the city that lies ahead of him and its fresh air. His timer starts beeping to remind him that his break is over. Despite being warned about removing the device, the irritated Friendon boldly scrapes the device out of his forearm, throws it on the tracks, and starts running away from the common ground as fast as he can. As Friendon continues running, he passes through a ghetto-like area where homeless people reside but gets tripped up and falls. An elderly man, who he immediately recognizes to be the wise Augustus, comes to his aid and helps him up. However, as Friendon introduces himself, the old man starts interrogating him to verify his integrity and see how smart the young man is. After a brief conversation, Augustus is happy with all he hears. He offers to help Friendon with the many cuts and bruises on his hand and takes him to his tent by the side of the road. As Augustus patches up Friendon's wounds, the men start talking. Friendon shares how much he wishes to find his mother and asks Augustus to help him. But before the old man can respond, he hears a little girl screaming his name and goes out to check what's going on. Outside, Augustus sees a couple of police officers named Officer Terrence Bernard and Officer Omar Lady chasing a young girl so that they could rape her. The old man catches the girl and tries to reason with the officers who adamantly order him to give her up. Chaos ensues as Officer Terrence shoots the young girl, which infuriates Augustus into attacking the officer while Friendon comes out of his hiding behind the officers and beats them with a pipe. Friendon is caught during the assault and is arrested. His unconscious body is strapped to a chair whose appendages are attached to the top of Friendon's head and the base of his brain to control his activities and thought processes. He is wheeled into court, which is resigned upon by a computer system judge, by veteran court marshal Otis Brill and his rookie partner Tilly V, who is quite shocked by the whole procedure. Moments later, a massive screen swings into the room, turns itself on, and the judge, made up of the collective intelligences of several people, comes on. The judge orders Friendon awake and asks him to confirm his identity. Friendon is quite confused to find himself in such a vulnerable state, and it takes him a minute to realize that he is in court. However, before he answers the judge's question, Friendon poses a question of his own in which he argues the need for him to be tied up when the machine attached to his brain can detect his movements and restrain him as needed with various painful punishments. The judge sees the logic in the argument and reluctantly frees the defendant, who immediately stands up to ask what the charges are, with the appendages still attached to his head. The judge reads Friendon's charges as 3 counts of murder, assault on an officer on duty, and escape from the confines of the common ground, and explains if found guilty, he will be sentenced to a speedy death in the same chair he was wheeled in. Friendon gets on the platform, and as he begins to make his case, a screen turns on and his computer system system lawyer starts to present his case. Brandon interrupts his lawyer and asks the judge for permission to drop her, as he doesn't feel she can represent him well. After a few minutes of back-and-forth argument, Frendon declares that he can represent himself better, citing a conflict of interest as both the judge and the lawyer share the same web connections and database and are inclined to come to the same conclusion. Otis tries to advise Frendon to get in line and behave to no avail, and the brave defendant goes one step further by asking to present his case in front of a jury of his peers. The judge finds this idea preposterous and tries to fight it as hard as it can. It cites that the new Constitution has allowed automated justice to prevail, which doesn't require any aid in making decisions. It adds that vetting and choosing jurors takes months, which opposes the need for speedy justice. Frendon is not discouraged by this resistance and insists that he has a right. He asks the judge to choose 12 random jurors from the mortuary database. The court has never had to deal with such ideas and so gets stuck for a few moments pondering the proposal, during which Frendon hits on Tilly and connects with her by sharing his philosophical ideas about freedom and reminding her of her childhood, while calming down the annoyed Otis by telling him how the system can't beat them down if they use their mind. After a momentary lapse, the judge resumes the proceedings, and having come up with no logical reason to deny Frendon, grants his request and presents the intelligence of 12 randomly picked dead jurors on different screens from the Collective Intelligence and Memories database. The jurors are confused at first and introduce their names and the cause of their death. Upon learning that the jurors are summoned from the collective database, Frendon learns from the judge that the defense circuit is also used to inform the judge's web circuits, and argues that his lawyer may be used for both the prosecution and defense, and accuses the judge of potentially influencing the lawyer. The court system once again goes into a glitch and freezes due to the logic it's presented with. Right after it electrocutes Frendon through the appendages connected to his head. Frendon screams in pain, drops to the ground, and passes out, shocking the court-martials, especially Tilly, who trespasses against the laws to hold and comfort the unconscious body of Frendon. In his mind, Frendon is transported to a field where he meets Augustus and sadly realizes that the old man was killed by the police during the altercation. Augustus calms down the devastated Frendon and advises him to use his brain and his reasoning power to beat the system. Frendon regains consciousness and slowly gets up. Officer Otis reprimands him for the way he's challenging the court system, suggesting that the automatic justice system is fair and always correct. Frendon is not swayed by this and prepares himself to push through the pain and difficulties to make his case. After recovering from a momentary lapse, the judge resumes the proceeding, dismisses the lawyer system, and allows Frendon to represent himself. The judge then once again reads the charges and asks Frendon how he pleads. Instead of answering directly, Frendon takes a moment to narrate who he is and how he was raised in the confinement of the common grounds without proper care and training to the jurors. Then he explains that the officers killed the little girl and Augustus, and that he only killed Officer Terrence in self-defense. The judge wants to hear none of it, and once again reminds the defendant that the murder of a police officer is a capital offense, punishable by death. Frendon declares that he's not guilty and asks the judge to check the surveillance cameras around the crime scene to see what really happened, but is dismayed to learn that all the cameras have conveniently been destroyed by vandals. The judge then presents its eyewitness, Officer Omar, from his hospital bed, where he's recovering from the gunshot wounds, on the screen. Officer Omar shyly details his account of what happened, in which he narrates that Frendon is the culprit and that he killed his partner, the little girl, and Augustus. The jurors are shocked by what they hear, but calm down to maintain order in the courtroom. Frendon denies the officer's account. Desperate to make his case and prove his innocence, he declares that he too has an eyewitness, which intrigues the judge enough to hear the defendant out. Frendon then requests an access line into the database and starts frantically calling Augustus, but the judge resists his attempts as it's scared to let an untested psyche into its system. After a brief argument, the judge freezes once more as it contemplates the latest argument of the defendant's right to present an eyewitness. During this time, hoping he can survive the ordeal, Frendon asks Tilly out and she accepts. After a few moments, the judge resumes and agrees to watch the last memory of Augustus and consider it as an eyewitness testimony for the defendant. The memory is processed, and the events are detailed throughout the dying man's eyes. It's clearly seen that after chasing the helpless little girl, Officer Terrence had shot and killed both the girl and Augustus before being shot and killed by Frendon, who also injures Officer Omar, who takes aim at him. Most damning of all, in his last words, Augustus tells the officers arriving at the crime scene as a result of the ruckus that the police had shot him. The jurors are utterly outraged by the incident. However, the judge tries to shut them down, and as it proceeds to give a guilty verdict, they resist. The judge system freezes and malfunctions, which leads Officer Otis to run out looking to inform the technicians. Thousands of intelligents come on the screen to act as jurors and declare that Frendon is innocent. This is interrupted by the override system, which comes on to announce that Frendon has elicited an inappropriate emotion in the judge, leading it to malfunction. It then wipes all the extraneous details off the case before it resumes the court proceedings. Despite everything, the judge then comes back on, declares that Frendon has been found guilty, and sentences him to a speedy death before shutting down, which outrages Tilly. Then, the appendages pull the defendant back to the chair, and he is firmly tied down. Tilly remains by his side and tells him that he has successfully proven his innocence to her and that she admires his courage, which comforts the helpless young man. Then out of nowhere, an appendage comes out of the judge's screen, attacks, and kills the bright Frendon. Moments later, Officer Otis returns with the technician, but is confused to see that he's too late. The technician reveals that the unusual emotions elicited in the court proceedings resulted in the malfunction and casually shrugs off the whole ordeal. Later that day, Tilly returns to the courtroom and is shocked to see Frendon come up on the judge's screen. Frendon explains that the jurors had seen his innocence and how he beat the judge and had his mind incorporated into the system so that it could beat it. Frendon then comes out of the screen as a hologram, tells Tilly they can do anything they want with their minds, and enters her body.